from the Department.
Good afternoon. My name is Paul Moore and I'm absolutely delighted to join you live from Áras í Chonlae as part of Féile an Phobal. I'm the Director of Future Screens NI, which is a creative cluster programme investing in the creative industries across the region. The theme for today's discussion is creativity after COVID-19. The COVID-19 crisis has changed how we engage with each other and with the rest of the world. While physical spaces and services were paused, creativity advanced, with thinkers and makers finding new ways to connect and create. It was during these unprecedented times that myself and my colleagues at Future Screens NI began to try and generate ideas through initiatives such as the Rewriting the Narrative project. These ideas, through no fault of ours, and all the credit has to go to those doing the projects, have become some of the most remarkable innovations that we have seen over the last couple of years. This afternoon, we'll hear 4 very different perspectives on creativity after COVID-19. First of all, we'll hear from Deepa Manclair, who sadly can't be with us because she's away working on a creative project, and she's no longer available to us. But Deepa's an award-winning visual artist, innovator, author, and chief executive of Neon, a health technology company. Deepa's a visual artist who explores belonging and identity, producing beautiful and moving works. Deepa became inspired by immersive technology and combined her visual practice to create beautiful and compelling solutions to societal challenges. In doing so, she has created Tesuru, which has the overall intention of transforming the peace walls. Over on my left, Michael McGlade is the CEO and creative director of Yellow Design. Michael combines an artistic approach with technical ability to develop innovations with the potential to transform cities. He has built a DeLorean racetrack in augmented reality, developed Rovar as a smart city platform, and of course, in partnership with the Áras, he has launched Belfast's first AR heritage tour, the James Connolly Trail. You're very welcome, Michael. We're also joined on my left by Declan Keeney. Declan's an award-winning documentary filmmaker specialising in peace and conflict resolution. Whilst in the BBC, Declan documented some of the worst atrocities of the conflict. He's now director of the Ulster Screen Academy. He's a leading dedicated programme of work which will see Belfast home to the largest virtual production studio in Europe. Declan's priority, he tells us, is to ensure that all in Belfast and the region can benefit from the studio. You're welcome. Look forward to hearing it, Declan. And last but by no means least, on my right, we're joined by Zoe Seaton. Zoe is the founder and artistic director of Big Telly Theatre Company. In 2018, she was awarded an honorary doctorate by the University of Ulster. You have my apologies, I should have said Dr. Zoe Seaton, for her commitment to the dramatic arts in Northern Ireland. During the COVID-19 crisis, Zoe has developed new forms of immersive theatre, whether that is an AI-powered theme park called Alice, The House, which is an interactive installation which reflects upon the conflict, or Right Up Your Street, which is a live-action theatre game which takes place, yeah, you guessed it, right up your street. Following each of the speakers and hearing what they have to say, we'll have a Q&A session, so you're very welcome to post questions and comments in the YouTube chat bar, and we'll look forward to hearing those. But before we come to our guests who are actually with me here, I'd like to show you some of Deepa's work. So she can't be here, but we can see what Deepa has been involved in.
Today, I am going to share some of the work that my company has been working on through COVID. It has been an incredibly challenging year, but also has presented opportunities to look at issues in a new way. And thanks to funding from Future Screens, from the Arts Council, and from NI Screen, we have managed to pivot and test the capabilities of new technologies, such as virtual and augmented reality. And I want to start by sharing one of the first pieces of virtual reality animation that my company created called Retinée, which will help explain the principles behind my approach. In Retinée, you enter through a mirror, and when you return to that mirror, having completed your journey, the mirror reads Retinée, which is the word enter spelt backwards. And at the heart of Retinée is a quote from Aristotle. Creativity and technical capability have to work hand in hand and rely on each other completely. Neither can work on its own, but when they do work together, it results in the whole being greater than the sum of all its parts.
These books haven't been able to drop their letters for years now, so there's been no new stories. It's crazy, right? Oh man, look what you did! We're going to get new stories! That's brilliant! New stories!
Discover ME, another project we've been working on over the past year, uses virtual reality animation to share insight into the lives of people living with ME and uses the power of empathy so that the viewer remembers what they see, hear, and experience with their entire body and not just their minds. With VR, we put professionals in scenes in the middle of real-life stories that are normally never seen, heard, or experienced to help lessen the gap between actual events and personal experience. And now, with about 20% of people who have had COVID experiencing long COVID, where symptoms are really similar to ME, the need for this VR experience has become even more urgent.
My name is Joan. I am a mother, a wife, and a daughter. My world was always one of vibrant health, a happy family life, and with a career I love. But in 1999, I was plunged into a world I never knew existed, and I was stripped of everything I held precious. Overnight, I went from living life to the full to being rendered bedbound. There was no warning and no time to prepare for the nightmare ahead. I woke up with what felt like a flu, and I had no reason to believe it wouldn't resolve in a few days. But as the months passed by without improvement, and routine blood tests came back normal, I was told it was just a virus.
One of my latest projects is an augmented reality street art app, which has been launched free on Apple, and Play Store, and is a response in maintaining tourism during COVID. This AR is based on Deep Love street art found in Dunbar Street, Belfast. We are still in the early stages of the adoption of AR, and there is a rush to create apps and experiences that are often too focused on showing off its technical capability or dominated by marketing and advertising. And a question I am really interested in exploring is, can we use AR to redefine digital spaces for positive action and move seamlessly between the digital and physical worlds? Here is a short trailer to give you a taste of what the experience is like. Suru is another augmented reality experience which assesses how physical and digital objects and information can coexist through the layering of content over the real world. In a twinning project between Belfast and Hiroshima, the AR Peace Wall app uses the international symbol for peace, the crane, which is called Suru in Japanese. And in this experience, the viewer sees the digital removal of the wall at Cooper Way to reveal a story of a little boy on the morning of the day the atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima, on the 6th of August, 1945. Essentially, Suru virtually replaces the peace wall with a story of survival, recovery, and unity. In Hiroshima, many of the trees affected by the atomic bomb survived heat emitted by the explosion, which was 40 times greater than the heat from the sun. These trees epitomized peace in the aftermath of the bomb and in rebuilding a razed city. It is the beginning of a process to explore AR's capability to reimagine divided spaces safely. And yet it is more than that. It is an opportunity to explore the use of AR as a tool for social justice in international peace building. There soon will be 5 red cranes stenciled along the Cooper Way wall, and the AR Peace Wall app is available now on Apple Store and will be available on Google Play Store soon. I want to thank you for listening today.
Thank you, Deepa. When I look at Deepa's work, I think it's an example of how creativity has been enhanced by combining it with some of the technologies that are involved in order to show Deepa's profound understanding of what it means to be human. Beautiful stuff. I want to move now across to Michael, if I may. We've been lucky enough in Future Screens to be involved with some of the work that you've been doing. It's been a privilege, Michael. But I'm always amused by the fact the thing that you seem to be most proud of is that you were the best drawer in class at school.
Yep, it really is. Paul actually isn't. And just to put this in context for our viewers who I hope are having an amazing Fela, by the way. I attended Holy Trinity School, which is just up in the Mona Bypass. Went to St Mary's Grammar School on the Glen Road. And there wasn't many graphic designers, especially about in West Belfast during the time. So trying to find a reference point, they're trying to get somebody to help out. And I was just very fortunate. I bumped into one guy, Larry McGarry, in the pub in the Hunt Lodge, and he just gave me that wee direction to turn. I suppose it was a talent. I was gifted with that, and actually to make a career out of it. And I fundamentally believe that in every class, there's the best drawer. There's the best soccer player. There's the best fighter. Sometimes there's the best drawer, and we have.
And they might all be the same person.
Exactly. And we have just pockets of talent. Exactly. And we have just pockets of talent within our city, and we just want to unlock that. I really do fundamentally believe in that.
So how do you build people around you in a business in order to unlock that, to create jobs and to create an economic stability for people who are creative?
I think creativity and confidence goes hand in hand, and sometimes you'll just see a young teenager in some kind of context. We did Yellow Design, digital media. My career has been at it for 20 years. Yellow Design was 10 years old, and we were asking ourselves this fundamental questions: what's the next future of digital? So we started looking at this new technology, augmented reality, which is available on everyone's smartphone. And in Belfast, we had the new glider, which was launched 2.5 years ago. And we're like, what about putting these AR attractions along the glider route across west of the city into the east? So in the east of the city, we had C.S. Lewis, we had Titanic, which you'll see shortly. But in West Belfast, on the Peace Walls, we turned the Peace Walls into an interactive timeline, all pen and telling that story about civil rights, how we got into the darker days and the conflict, and how the Good Friday Agreement is a fundamental document, that a peace accord that really has transformed this city. And we wanted tourists to appreciate the city, but when they understood the fabric, what drives it, they would really be impressed. And then also as well the DeLorean, and now we're working with Áras na Coille and launching the first AR experience. But I'd like to show this clip here, which is about Titanic, just as an example of what's possible with augmented reality.
Titanic full scale, recreated with augmented reality back on the Belfast Sleepways, allows our team to tell a story. A story where visitors can immerse themselves in time, in history, on the exact location where the legend was built over 100 years ago. Recreated in full 3D at 265 metres in length, Titanic can be inspected from every angle. Visitors use their smartphones to also explore Titanic, ship's amazing details, all while capturing memories and sharing on social media. Carefully considering accessibility for all, the ship's entry can be lowered, allowing users to walk the decks of the ship. Walking among large markings on the ground, circles soon become funnels, compartments become clearly visible, and the infamous lifeboats also reappear. Transforming urban cityscapes into interactive hubs at large scale with AR is what we do best. Whether relaunching Apollo 11 rockets, or competing at virtual DeLorean racing tracks, or simply entering through the magical wardrobe of C.S. Lewis into the land of Narnia. Find Lucy's Lamppost, Edward's Turkish Delight, or the Beaver's House to collect your rewards. Allowing families to play an interactive game mapped out in a safe public outdoor space, we set the stage to free and evoke Aslan, while imprisoning the wicked Snow Witch and her wolves. Delivered in multiple languages, the C.S. Lewis experience can be virtually deployed.
Thank you, Michael. I'm going to say something very naive now. What for me is remarkable about that is that we're seeing global, sophisticated work which is about Belfast.
Yeah. We think there's something amazing in that. We even didn't have a tourism sector or a visitor economy over 20 years ago. And we have this opportunity to lead the way, to actually propel Belfast from zero to hero, and really tell all our stories. And we have some amazing stories to tell in this city, some amazing characters, and some amazing history, and no better place to be talking about this than the James Connolly Visitor Centre. And allowing people just to understand how things were shaped. We've done the same with Clifton House, in regards to the moral compass of Mary Ann McCracken. And yeah, we have really strong potential because we're now deploying our technology into other cities, and they're looking at Belfast as a reference point. They go, this is amazing that you're leading the way.
When you sit down to do something like that, let's say the Titanic, AR, whatever, is your thinking driven by the technology, or is it an open book that you just let creative ideas run riot on it?
Creative ideas that run riot, and I have to say, look, I'm really blessed to be working with such an amazing team. But because we don't let technology do the restraints, what you have to do really do is in creative training in the box, and the technology will kind of pull you back. But if you aim low, you'll stay low. So in many ways, it's up to us to really think big and bold, and that's really that's the main driving force.
Is it complete nonsense to say that if we can think it, we can make it?
Yeah, especially with digital. Really, in regards to augmented reality and virtual. So that's really what I'm doing. And if any young people are out there thinking about a career in creativity, it is amazing that whatever ideas you want to have, and now you can fulfill them. Do you know what I mean? And just have to balance that out now with, can you sell it? Because you have to remain sustainable as a business. But yeah, so I look at the likes of David Beckham in this world, who's made a career in football, and we've just been very fortunate to make a career in something that we love doing.
Without going off at a tangent, and I don't think I am, you mentioned sustainability, and you mentioned the glider. In terms of the climate report that we saw coming out yesterday, we need to be creative around that as well, don't we? How we make this industry net zero.
In regards to sustainability, it's a real common theme that keeps coming up on the news, and we're all really coming very, very aware of it. So there's this demand to become the other about the economy and the economics, and that people are sharing the opportunities, and the thing has to work for our people. And that's what we looked about on the glider, of how can we encourage people to leave the city centre and come up the Falls Road, up a Stewartstown Road, and go and play with DeLorean virtual racing tracks at the Urban Village at Colin Connect. So we have developed that as an AR game. So rather than just waiting on the glider, why not launch a full-scale DeLorean car, change the colour, change the graphics, change the wheels, and then if there's 10 minutes left before that glider pulls up, scale it down and actually race it on a virtual racing track. And that was me just wanting to go, right, what's the story we can tell for people in Poglass and Twinbrook? And they deserve the same opportunity as people sitting in any other city and things like that. So it's amazing when you scratch away at the surface, you'll find a really rich story. And there's me standing at this new bus stop going, what is the story we could tell? And you went, I know, Back to the Future car, world renowned, it was built like 500 metres north side of Twinbrook. So that's the bit and that's the bit that has made Dubai, to be honest, set up and take notice. Their transport authority, so you can gamify our transport network in London and Oxford Street and BT and all these other ones. I really take notice because of what the story that we are telling with DeLorean in Twinbrook. And it gives me real great joy, I have to say.
A very straightforward question. Loved the app, but she's saying, what's the name of it? App Store? Is it available in the App Store?
So different parts of this has been research and development. Some of it's coming out. So the James Connolly, you'll need to come to the visitor centre and basically go out on a tour.
But the Titanic one, is it available?
It's getting launched next month. So it will be Home of Titanic. And it's getting launched for the Beyond conference, Paul, that we were just talking about. It'll be the official launch later.
Coming in October, keep watching Twitter and see it coming hopefully within the next weeks. I want to move to Michael. And I'm going to start with a question which is on the chat panel, and they're saying, Catherine wants to know, do you think we are creativity or the technology?
Thanks to Philip and
Future Screens for giving us the opportunity to talk about some of the projects we're working in. And I think in that context of the question, you know, what we've been working on over the last 2 years at Ulster University, I've been part of an incredible team led by Professor Frank Lyons at Ulster. And the technology has been accelerated that we're working in this virtual production. And you know what we're really striving and what we've now got approved is an opportunity to build one of the most sophisticated you know, technology centres for film, television, visual effects, immersive in Europe. And you know, so in some ways it is always about proving that there is an audience, proving that there is an opportunity, and then supplying and upskilling the people that we need. So in the project that I'm talking about in terms of virtual production, we have an incredible opportunity to kind of give Northern Ireland and the UK and Ireland an opportunity to be leaders, global leaders. And in order to do that, we need investment, Paul, and we need to create technology. But the part that I'm excited about and why, you know, it's great to talk in opportunities like this about the projects that we've been working away, beavering away during COVID, and COVID has definitely accelerated the projects, is that this investment is there, and now we're about to build some incredible facilities for Northern Ireland. In this case, it's a Belfast City Deal Innovation Pillar project called the Screen Media Innovation Lab. And it's built on the background of all of the work that Future Screens have done. It's built on the exciting creativity that we can see in this part of the world. It's built on the innovation of people like Michael and Michael's company, Enter Yes, Taunt, Retinize. There are so many people doing incredible things, telling amazing stories. And in some ways, all of this is about empowering and enabling technology. You know, it's enabling story or Nettown or Paramount, or you know, the BBC or regional and network outputs. But in our case, we're building a thing called the Screen Media Innovation Lab. It's part of a number of projects we're building, including another virtual production studio. The virtual production studio is a £65 million virtual production.
That again, 65.
Believe me, it kind of trips off the tongue. But we do this more publicly now because this is a project that stage. It'll come online the next year or so, and the project is a virtual production complex. If I talk about virtual production briefly, it's going to be built out at the the Giant Leap, where the big studios are already. The Harbour Commission, who are one of our partners in this, and it's part of the second phase of development for them. And there are 4 stages out there that are going to be built in the next year. These are 20,000 square foot sound stages. You can't imagine how big these spaces are. At Netflix, there's already existing studios out there, and this goes back to Catherine's question. You know, we've already got Netflix out there doing For Good and Evil and 2,000 square stages. So the Screen Media Innovation Lab is a 64,000 square foot building in itself, a huge building that will have any number of sound stages on it. The virtual production technology, and we're seeing some of the images here that are brought along. I mean, this is Star Wars, for example, and The Mandalorian. This is a technology where we have, in the case of the Screen Media Innovation Lab in Belfast, we will have up to 5,000 of these screens in a circular position, a box shape, with a that's made of LEDs. We can create worlds inside that space. We can build sets inside that space. We can transform Belfast to anywhere in the world. This gives us a creative edge in Northern Ireland to transform what we already do. We already have a film industry. Like Michael was saying there, you know, 20 years ago we couldn't talk about a film industry in Northern Ireland. We had people who were in film. We had a very strong broadcast sector, but we didn't really have a film industry. Now we do. Create a hell of a lot of for local companies. And so the Screen Media Innovation Lab also has flexible virtual production stages that will allow broadcasters to use the space, create virtual worlds, as you can see in some of the images that are on screen, create virtual worlds for anywhere. You know, brilliant opportunities for children's drama, for fiction, for feature film production, for television, for commercial production, for immersive experiences. So these LED stages are, in some cases, and they are creating immersive worlds. We create immersive environments for them, much like Michael's doing with these projects like Narnia, photorealistic. And so we can use camera technology on those stages, and we can film and replace green screen and blue screen. And so we can essentially have anywhere in the universe behind us, quite literally, as within your imagination. And we can have a magic hour for 12 hours that day and film all day in magic hour.
have different have objects placed inside that space that are extended into the LED wall. The LED wall, as we can see from some of these photographs, they essentially track with you when you move the camera. So it goes into an immersive world. So if you track the camera forward, you can look around the corner, which is incredible technology. So, going back to Catherine's question, what are we doing? Well, we're building platforms that we need to tell. And some of the exciting we're already starting to see with future screens opportunities to explore what that means for aesthetic, what that means for story, what can this technology do well, what can it now enable us to do that we couldn't do before.
I mean, I think it's interesting you're saying there about us being in a moment, if you like, and you were very kind about future screens, and future screens couldn't have done any of this, for example, if there hadn't been the foundation laid down by Richard Williams and his team at Northern Ireland Screen Foundation. But I think, and the question I'm going to ask is this a COVID piece? There seems to be much greater collaboration now. There's that going on at Ulster. At Queen's, we've got the work that Michael Alcorn and his team is doing. You've got the harbour. There seems to be a new collaborative kind of discourse out there, or am I making that up?
That's what we're hearing. I mean, I'm in a university, but I come from industry. But what industry is telling us is there's a new visibility of what's happening, and that's really exciting because as a region, if you like, what people are seeing is they're floating all the boats. And that's what something like this is about lifting all the tides, lifting all boats, and it's creating new animation companies where they're starting to build CGI assets, objects, characters. We have companies like Humane, world-leading companies that are working on AAA games right here in Belfast, building digital humans for these games and for visual effects and films. We have an opportunity for building worlds by games design companies. We have incredible companies that are in this space now too, who are creating 3D environments that we can occupy. So, for example, in virtual production, for example, The Lion King, the film The Lion King, they created a 2 kilometre by 2 kilometre world, and they sent the cinematographer and the director, and the producers and so on, in with virtual reality headsets, and they walked around that location for a week, Wrecking, where they were going to film The Lion King. Completely, if they didn't like the mountain where it was in the back of the shot, the mountain could be moved 4 feet to the left. If it wasn't bright enough, they could turn the sun up, and they could change the atmosphere by just changing the spacing and the lighting in the set. And so technology has been designed. But of course, what you have, because it's being based in academic partners, one of only 6 or 7 in the UK and Ireland, that are involved with. And so, we're these environments for these stages, but they can also be used for games. They can be used for immersive experiences. They can be used for we can physically, we can move through them like we do with games, yet they are the backdrops for film and television series. Is like the
So the whole thing of visual communication, allowing people, like we're working with one particular airline, where now you can actually see the aircraft cabin and walk around in it in your just using your smartphone to decide, are you going to pay for that upgrade? Doing things like that. So the big brands, the big airlines, and if they're a driving force, yes, you could be making money even before you arrive, which is a good example. But also as well, it really is making sure that the spread of that wealth is spread across the city, and that's one of the key things we're very passionate about, that the fringes of West Belfast and East Belfast are fortunate enough to benefit from it.
And the fringes of the fringes of the region, the rurality piece as well. With the digital, we can kind of bring that in as well.
Yeah.
All right, I want to turn to Zoe, whom again we've been working with during the period of COVID almost every day, I would have to say. Zoe, I ended up talking to you almost every day. And I hope I'm not insulting you here, but I think the thing that fascinates me most about you is that you were hyper creative before this started, but COVID seems to have given you a second life, a second creative life. Am I exaggerating?
No, not at all. It's been absolutely fascinating, and I remember we met.
Your work seems to have touched a nerve there.
Yeah, I think so. And it's that thing if, imagine if that stool suddenly stood up and spoke to you and you go, oh, that would be amazing, wouldn't it? So how do we make that happen? Or how do we make things just happen where you don't expect them to happen? So for me, it's always about that. It's about, if you can see it coming, I'm less interested in it arriving. But it's about how do you create surprise within that. So when you're watching a Zoom show, what happens if Macbeth arrives at your door? That's what I'm aiming for. He arrives at your door in an Uber and there's some blood in a pizza box. Boom. So, yeah.
Well, we're going to see some of your work. Would you like to set it up for us? What are we going to see?
Yeah, please. So this is our digital diary. So this is our snapshot of our 17 shows we made over during the pandemic.
Okay, we look forward to seeing this.
Thank you.
It would be naive of us not to make the point that not everyone has received your work with great grace, and there's been some kind of criticism that this is not proper theatre. What would you say to that?
Yeah, I mean, that just, I think it's crazy because it's just for me, it's a completely new way of telling a story. Digital is a whole new piece. Now that we're going back to live work, we're using AR within it, we're using WhatsApp within it, we're using digital within it. And it's just a new, why would you turn your back on a new way of telling a story and a new way of reaching people? I mean, I think theatre that's streamed, now that doesn't interest me, but if there's an audience for it, let's make it. But I think there is a kind of backlash against the whole digital thing, which, I don't know, I'm just interested in the new thing. I like the new space where there are no rules yet, and that's why it was an interesting space for me to be in.
And you'd have to say that your audience has been transformed. I mean, that global piece, you would never have reached the CNNs and so on before.
No, never. And the audiences have stayed with us, and now that we're going back to live work, we're now, thanks to Future Screens, working on a way of having a live piece of theatre with live audience and a digital audience, and the digital audience have agency. So we're making an app where they can, it's called Remote Control, where they can control, the digital audience can control things in the physical space. So they can say to the live audience, don't go to door C, there's a threat at door C, or let's turn on the snow machine, or let's make the shoes dance. So they have a completely different agency. So we have a remote audience rescuing a live audience in an unfolding situation. It's a metaphor for Northern Ireland.
Forgive me if this is a patronising question, but what have you learned during the year? Seems to me you have transformed entirely, and you've made huge learning about technology without it being about technology.
Yeah, I mean, I've learned so little about technology. I'm the worst in the room. And in a way, I think my partial knowledge is what's useful. So I'm the person saying, but why can't that scooter turn into a cow? And people can't tell me no anymore.
So you're asking the questions that the Michaels of this world have to answer?
Yes.
Yeah, you just check over your shoulder every now and again to your right-hand man or support or woman and going, is this possible? But you've already delivered the idea, so it's happening, isn't it? So
Yeah,
it's
well,
like,
I think
happening.
it's that thing of if you don't really know, like the app people we're working with at the moment are going, because you know nothing about it, you're asking us ridiculous things, and I'm going, yes.
Yeah.
And they're doing them.
This is probably a question for yourself. We could all answer it, but I'm going to give it to you. So it's coming from Lewis. And he says, have there been lessons learned during COVID regarding excluded audiences? You know, audiences who haven't been reached because of geography, socio-economic reasons. And because Lewis is doing amazing work with people with ability challenges, you know, that kind of the disabled audience and so on. Have we learned anything?
Massively. I mean, we've had so many emails and letters from audiences across the world who have said because of access, because of geography, because of disability, because of anxiety, we're not able to go to. Sometimes because of, you know, they find theatres intimidating places. We don't usually work in theatres, we quite often work outside them, but even so, we've reached massively new audiences, and that there's a real responsibility to them, I think, you know, and that's why when people are kind of dismissive of digital work, I'm like, well, what about accessibility, and what about all the people who want to access it in that way?
Yeah, Lewis himself, hope you'll forgive me saying this, works with a group of young people who have a range of different challenges. But actually the COVID piece and being on Zoom has, and I'm exaggerating slightly, almost created a level playing field where they can do things and be creative the same as everybody else because everybody's in the same boat.
Big
And if I may, Paul, just come in on that one. Because the same thing about accessibility, there's two levels of digital poverty. Some people don't have access to good broadband and smart devices and smartphones, and trying to address that. So especially on VR headsets, for example, not everyone can afford a VR headset, but most people can access a smart tablet. But also accessibility, we really had looked at that as well in regards to people in wheelchairs or families in pushchairs and things like that. So using just urban spaces, big blank flat spaces in cities, and then bringing the creativity and imagination of that. So people in a wheelchair can travel the decks of Titanic, do you know what I mean? Just by using the smartphone that hopefully they have in their pocket.
There's a question for yourself, Declan. I think I'm going to give it to you anyway, again from Catherine. And she says that, you know, we've got all this technological stuff going on, really exciting developments, and we've done something to kind of reduce the creative talent drain. But how do we keep those young people here? And associated with that, how do we get to the young people who haven't been told this can be an ambition for them?
Yeah, great questions. So, I mean, if we take the first bit, one of the things that we've learned in the journey, you know, towards creating and some of this enabling technology, you know, is that we have to have talent pipelines. I mean, it's not just us in a university saying that or education saying that. I mean, this is the international companies saying that, like Netflix, and we've been having discussions with people like Netflix and others. They want a talent pipeline here in Northern Ireland if they're going to come here and invest. Of course, the Screen Media Innovation Lab isn't all about bringing people from outside. It's about enabling investment and growth here too in all sorts of ways. And you know, you're looking at the work of the panelists today, it's incredible the innovation that's happening, and that innovation, you know, is convergence again, Paul. It's sort of rallying around similar skill sets. So you know, the universities are stepping up and creating talent pipelines, because we have got to get young people opportunities to get them into these types of jobs, to show them the horizon is further back than they think it is.
I'm going to interrupt you there because there's thousands of young people in this city for whom university, the name university or academy, is a complete turn-off.
Yeah.
We need an alternative. I mean, what about apprenticeships, for example? We need a different way in.
That's a really interesting one, because if I could just talk about a piece of work that we did for the Belfast Region City did around apprenticeships, and myself and Abby McKenna, who's the head of apprenticeships at Ulster University, is a report that will be published very, very soon. And you know what we realised very quickly when we started to look at that work is in the creative and digital sector we don't have apprenticeships that work. The traditional model doesn't work for companies. That's what they're telling us when we listen to them. But we need to create a track from what we call level 2 right through to level 7, Paul. And so level 2 is really getting on the education trail. It's getting just to the point where you can build confidence in people, push boundaries, push horizons, and get them moved up. You know, for example, like working down in the sets, you know, there are hundreds of joiners, hundreds of crafts people that are building the incredible sets. Why not do your apprenticeship there? Learn that craft, build sets. You can come and work with Zoe for an afternoon. You can come and work in theatre. You can come and work in film. You can come and work in television. But we have got to build it so it's an ecosystem. We have an opportunity here in this part of the world to build an ecosystem because we have now alignment, this visibility you talked about earlier on, with key stakeholders like the incredible work Northern Ireland Screen's doing, who are a major partner in the Screen Media Innovation Lab, looking at ScreenWorks, for example, where we're creating pathways for people from no education right through and building channels. Now, not everybody, you're right, will not come to university or need to. Or, you know, indeed some will come to FE or maybe not quite as far as HND or BTEC. But we have got to create the opportunities for those people to get into that chain and give them the same opportunities to progress. And so that pipeline is what I'm talking about. You know, we can move from level 2 right through to level 7 being master's level and level 6 being degree level. And we have got to build better opportunities. So there are great schemes like Aim High that Northern Ireland Screen are doing. You know, and again, some of those schemes there's 95% plus employment, I understand, from those schemes. People are being taken up because they can get to see the skill sets that people have, the person, the opportunity, the creativity behind them, you know.
Michael, my feeling about your company is that it has got that organic piece. It's built from the bottom up. But what are you doing? What's your company doing to try and get to those young people who haven't had this opportunity, for example?
Because a lot of stuff that we're using is gaming technology. Now, the technology is just an enabler for creativity. So we looked at it and went, well, all these young children are playing Xboxes and PlayStations. And I mean, up in Twinbrook and Poglass and all our local areas and things like that. And we're going, hold on, if they're sitting in their bedrooms and they're playing that, what about getting them outdoors and actually building their own games? So Connect Racing, which is an app on the App Store, by the way, is the DeLorean racing track. Now we downsized it so kids could play it in their bedroom during lockdown, but it's there. And what we've done is we've purposely left that game kind of unfinished, going, what would you do? Would you bring in creative ideas? How would you win bonus points? Would the car have a turbo? Would it, you know, can you go through a certain chicane and get extra points? But also as well, on the technology end of things, so they can get involved in building the game. They'll have the app on their phone in their pocket and they can put that on their CV that they helped develop that game. You know what I mean? Now, we don't have all the manpower and resources as Yellow Design to keep building that, but it's an acorn of an idea that if somebody was to nurture it, we could be building all this gaming technology and letting children get involved in creative and technology, have an app in their pocket, have it on their CV, do you know what I mean? And go, I'm capable of doing this.
And that's what some of the Ulster Screen Academy that I'm responsible for. We're planning a whole series of camps, if you like, summer camps, you know, and they'll be at different times of the year. And the idea is, and we're already working with a group from young people from North Belfast who are, you know, probably capable of going on to education, but are very unlikely to because of just the circumstances they find. And so what we're being able to do is bring them in and say, look, there are ways into this. There's an opportunity. One of the exercises, and I mentioned this last night at another event we were talking at, one of the exercises I do with my own students is, you know, quite often deliberately, if we're going to screen a film to provoke a reaction, I would play the title sequence first, and then they think you've lost it. You know, hang on, Declan, you know, that's the title, the film's over, you need to reset. I'm going, well, actually, what I'm showing you, this is the section of the film I want you to watch. There's one director, but there's 630 people working on this film. Now, which job is it that you want to get to? And, you know, so many of those jobs require creativity. You know, talk about the sustainability. You know, how do we grow as an industry? How do we grow as a digital and creative economy? We need to fill those 630 jobs with people from here, and we need lots of different types of people to do that, Paul.
I'm going to make a shameless plug for a project that Future Screens NI are developing with Alex McDowell from the World Building Institute. Alex was the creative director in Minority Report, and he's been working with us in the city to develop a project called Story Engine, which is going to try and identify young people who, for whatever reason, are disenfranchised and are not engaged, and link them up with companies and allow them to see that if they have the creativity and we give them the skills, then there is a potential, like yourself, Michael, to make your own business, to develop in your own way within that space.
I usually find that them children have an extra gift, and that's like a determination and a hunger and a resilience, just because of the upbringing, some of the challenges they faced in their childhood. All of a sudden, these children see an opportunity and they are gun blazing at it to go, right, I'm going to propel myself up, and it's on the lookout for them children and them opportunities.
One other point I want to make too, Paul, is, a lot of this is about democratising the technology and access to technology. And I think that's one of the big things with Screen Media Innovation Lab, for example. It is about making this available to communities, making this available to businesses here, to all types of businesses, like ones that we, you look at what Zoe's doing in terms of the subverting the technology to create new forms of theatre. That's the exciting bit for somebody like me who are trying to build this and to democratise this technology. We need to have access to it. We need to skill up to where you can simply use it as another tool palette, and that's where the exciting storytelling will come from, because ultimately a lot of this is about digital storytelling in a way. A lot of it is sort of drawn together by a theme that is around digital stories. We don't have good content. The rest of it is just technical, and it's not going to succeed. So we have got to build the content and the stories and the narrative that can both serve this part of the world, but also get off these shores, lift our heads, look globally. And that's the big piece as well around a lot of what we're trying to do down in the harbour, for example. But we're also building a very small version of this, a £1 million virtual production studio in York Street, right in the campus. That'll be available. We're going to start to do professional training for actors, for directors, for writers. We're already working on projects with them. That'll all take place starting in October when that comes online. It's called the Vipers Stage, and it's funded by the DFE, and we have an opportunity there to it's little bits of the technology that will be in the big lab, but the idea there is to start to create opportunities, open boundaries, push horizons for all sorts of communities to see what this is and how they can interface with it. And I think that's a really exciting phase of this development for that Ulster for me. And actually I can't wait to see what people start to do with the technology. And that's ultimately, and even students, students always wring the neck of these technologies, and that's exciting too, to see what they can do.
I mean, probably, Zoe, you are in a privileged position compared to the rest of us, because for us, getting into the community is an aspiration. You're in it constantly. And I suppose the question I would want to ask is, does that community want us? Is it a welcoming community? We're assuming they want us. From your experience, do they?
Yeah, big time. I think there's loads of opportunity there and loads of open doors. Certainly in the work we're doing, which we've kind of shifted. We used to do theatres, then we did shops and high streets, and now we're in neighbourhoods. And we're getting closer and closer to home, and that's been an interesting journey that we started from Zoom in the home, and now we're in your gardens. But yeah, no, absolutely. People want that sense of storytelling and connection and surprise, and all of this is available through this kind of work.
Well, sadly, believe it or not, we're coming to the end of our time. Interesting discussion, which I could go on with for quite a while, but sadly we've come to an end. I want to thank you, Zoe, for your input, and thank you for your work and for working with Future Screens, and we'll look to see what's developing. Declan, best of wishes with what's going forward. You have no work to do in the coming 18 months. Now that you've built it, it's
careful what you wish for, Paul.
Yes, absolutely. And Michael, really excited about what's coming forward. We'll look forward to seeing the apps, and thank you for being with us today. I suppose the last thing I want to say, and I just came across it last night, a fabulous quote from W.B. Yeats, which I think sums up the space we're all working in, where he says, "There is another world, but it's in this one." Thank you very much. Goodbye.